Have you ever watched a gardener in the summertime bring in loads of harvest and grow beautiful flowers and think to yourself, I want to do that too? So you do, and you fail. And you think to yourself, well, I guess I'm a bad gardener. Or you garden in a temperate climate. You move down south, say Florida, and you use all those gardening techniques. You fail, and you think to yourself, I guess you can't grow here in Florida. Hello, my name is Natissa, and I garden here on the subtropical Florida Gulf Coast, Zone 10. I am not trained in gardening anyway. I am no botanist, expert, whatever. I have just been growing successfully now for about 4 years, and it is because of these tips I'm about to share with you that I believe my southern green thumb has come from. Within these tips, it's not going to be an extensive detailing. My whole point is to help you gain some words, terms, and just ways of thinking to help you get started here growing in the deep south of Florida. Tip number 1, know your growing zone. The growing zone is just to indicate to you how low your temperatures go in the coldest time of year. And this is good to know because there are some frost tender crops and frost hardy crops, and with knowing how low you go, you can know what you can grow through these times. Also, for some places, the growing zones tell you maybe when your garden is done for the season in the northern climate. But for here in Zone 10, our lowest temperature is 30 degrees to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. And 32 degrees is freezing. So this kind of tells me where I am in the lowest temperature zones, and I also have an idea of what is going to last through this time. I can grow something year-round. Tip number 2, know your frost dates. Your first frost date and your last frost date. This is important because this kind of determines when your main growing season may be over. It doesn't matter what your zone is. The same zones can have completely different frost dates. Florida Zone 10, my first frost date is January 6th. And my last frost date is January 26th. That's a short window of possible freeze time, and that is a long growing season for me. If you want to know your frost dates, you can look it up online by looking up your zip code and asking, what are my frost dates? So now we're into tip number 3. What is your climate? Are you very hot, dry? Is your air very arid? Is it humid? Does it rain a lot? Do you have a lot of drought? This is important to know because there's a lot of crops that either do very well or not so well in certain climates. You also need to know throughout the year how your climate changes, so that way you can have an idea of what to grow. Another example is here it is very hot. The air is very humid. In fact, that is why we're doing this video inside. It's just way too hot. But I know the things that I can grow in this time of year in the summertime. And believe me, there is a long list of things you can grow. But I also know that the fall season is coming. Our temperatures dip down a little bit. Our humidity is not as high, usually starting around in October. So that is when I start getting my fall crops going that enjoy that type of weather much better. Tip number 4, your soil. What is your soil made out of? Go outside, dig around. Is it sandy? Is it filled with clay? Does it have a lot of organic life? A lot of bugs in it, earthworms? That's a good thing. You need life in your soil to help feed your plant. Do you need to make a garden bed or containers? You need to have a good growing medium. What is that? Something that is going to retain moisture, hold life, and still be well draining. What I do in my native soil, it is just sand. And is good as in it can help water drain through, but too much, like I have, water just goes right through it, all the nutrients go right through it, hardly holds any organic matter. So my simple way of making a bed is I use compost, which is basically broken down organic matter. I also use 1/3 peat moss and 1/3 of my native sand. Together, these materials will help create a better growing medium for my plants. I also like to put in a handful of fertilizer like 10-10-10. That just tells you the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that are nutrients that your plants need. Put a bit of that in there. A handful of chicken poo, blood and bone. I make compost tea. I also make my own compost. But together, these things will help create a great growing medium for your plants. Also, a thing called chop and drop, which is basically what it sounds. You take a plant, you chop, and you drop it at the base of your plants, which will eventually break down and feed the life within your soil, which is necessary for a successful garden. Tip number 5, mulch. Cover your ground. You can use pine needles, fallen leaves, the chop and drop I've mentioned before. You can use wood chip, cut grass. You can also use a living ground cover like sweet potatoes. They are a vine that goes across the ground. All these things can help cover your ground, which will help hold in moisture, maintain a good temperature within your ground so your soil life can live and help feed the roots to your plants. Also, covering your ground, mulching, can help with weed suppression. We don't want other plants growing up all around taking the nutrients that we so desperately need for our deep South Florida plant. Mulch does break down quickly here in the deep south of Florida because it is hot and humid. That breakdown will help build our soil up over time, turn it less sand and more with organic matter to help feed our microorganisms that are making our plants live. Me knew. Okay, I love you. You're a good girl. Tip number 6, sun and shade. So many garden tips talk about full sun for your plants, and yes, our plants need sun. Shade is, in my experience, just as important as the sun. It is very important to have some midday shade. I have an oak tree in my yard that helps cover some of the garden in the height of the day. But something else you can consider are other plants that do very well in the sun in the deep south, like okra, roselle. Those are 2 really good ones. And you can plant certain things that will appreciate that shade right behind it. And that way, and then when the sun comes back around, it's not going to be too intense. They're going to have that break, and it's just going to make for a healthier plant. Just a big example, I did my single seed challenge Corbaci pepper, and that actually gets some midday shade by that oak tree I was talking about. And without that bit of shade, I really do believe that plant would not have been as successful as it has been. So make sure you do have some shade in the summertime, especially, just enough to give your plants some rest. Tip number 7, timing. General timing charts, you'll see them on the back of seed packets. You'll see videos on YouTube about what you can still grow in May, June. And especially here in the deep south, we might follow these charts and get a little disappointed. And what I have found in my gardening experiences is that you can take those general timing charts and ideas and tweak them to your area, and that is where I have found my success. Taking a look on the back of a bok choy seed packet, You look at the times they give and you might think to yourself, well, gee, I did what the chart said. This says grow it here at this time during Florida. And so you try one of those months and it fails and you think, well, I guess I'm just bad at it. No, try again. Try a different month within that time. Sometimes just a little tweaking can go a long way. And sometimes each year is different. Keep an eye on your temperatures as they change. Plant different things. Get to know the timing. It's good to have those general ideas, but you need to find out what works for you where you are. Tip number 8, crop varieties and substitutes. All these tips work very well and have got me gardening successfully, but in discovering of the different vegetables and crops that work here very well has been a game changer in the garden for me. The number one thing is to grow what works. As gardeners, we just go to the big box stores, we see what seeds they have, and we think, oh, this is all there is to grow. Or we go to our grocery store and we want to grow this, everything that we see there. And I'll be honest, that's all I knew. I had no idea that I could grow things from other parts of the world and have even a more successful garden at doing that. The way to do this is find a climate that is similar to you, see what they're growing, and in this day and age where we can have things sent to us right to home, this is the opportunity for you to start building your garden on things that will work. If I knew this sooner, I would have had a garden long ago. But there are so many substitutes and varieties. In fact, I could do a whole video on just this, and I'd still probably have to make different video parts because they're so long. So much success, and it tastes so good. Number 9, keep growing everywhere. Buy a lot of seeds, save a lot of seed, learn how to propagate your plants, because the more plants you have, the more you can put them all over the place and you can see what works and what works where. So many times have I grown the same plant. Oh, I grew it over here, grew it over there. Oh, and it didn't quite work out too well. I grew it over this part of my yard and it grew wonderfully. So many environmental factors within different parts of your yard, different parts of your garden, sometimes even within the one garden bed you have. So don't just plant something once and think, oh, well, that didn't work. Plant it in different places. Planting everywhere also helps with polyculture, which is very important for our environment and really overall success of the garden. Here's a quick review on tips that have helped me become a green thumb here in the deep south of Florida. Is know your growing zone, know your frost dates first and last. What is your climate? Know your soil and have an idea of what a very good growing medium of soil is. Mulch your ground, cover your ground. The importance of sun and shade. Your timing, varieties and substitutes, and don't forget to plant everywhere, grow everywhere. And if I can grow here in the deep south of Florida, you can too. So if you have any other tips or ideas or things that have helped you grow, please share them with me down in the comments and I'll be happy to look at them, and more importantly, help others know that they can grow too. Thank you for watching and see you in the next one.